Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. That's a lovely slideshow, isn't it? Thank you, Don, for putting that together. You're about to get a treat because we still have some folks coming in here, and there's some lovely music that underscores that slideshow. So we're going to start it again from the beginning with the music for you. And I invite you, as you see these pictures of Toby, to prepare yourselves for the task we have at hand today. A task that is both joyful and sorrowful, a task that is important nonetheless. Let us be community with each other as we remember Toby Tyler. So I am the Reverend Charles Laughlin, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are here today to honor and to celebrate the life of William Bill Toby Tyler. It is common practice amongst us Universalists, or Unitarian Universalists, when we gather, we light a chalice. It is a place for us to start, a place to set our minds for why we are here. I'm going to ask Don to come forward. He's going to light the chalice while I share our opening words this morning. This chalice reminds us that for untold generations, our ancestors have gathered around an open flame. Not only does it provide light, but it provides warmth and safety and a place to gather to tell our stories. May we today, like them, find comfort in being together. Together, let us seek to make meaning as we share, as we reflect, as we grieve, and as we celebrate the life of Toby Tyler. May we honor the fullness of his life, a life filled with joy and sorrow, a life filled with triumph and challenge, a life filled with both ecstasy and pain. May we too, like those who have gone before, find comfort in shared laughter, consolation in our communal grief, and courage for the journey yet to unfold. Amen. So why do we gather? Well, here are some words. We need one another. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. And we need one another in the hour of defeat when, with encouragement, we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. Those are words by George E. Odell, and I think they are apt words for us today. They can set a context for what it is we're trying to accomplish, because you see, our purpose today is to pay homage to a beautiful life. And it is an honor and a privilege to be able to do that. It certainly is. But it is also a difficult thing, is it not? Difficult because this passing is a loss that is still so near for so many in this room. Let us embrace then to get today those words of Odell. Let us know deep in our bones, deep in our bones, that we need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. So however you have come to this space today, whatever you have brought with you, whether you have entered this room with grief and despair, whether you have come seeking some sort of encouragement or somehow a strength to endure, whether you have come to accomplish some great purpose or simply to be recalled to your best self, know that together in this hour, we need each other to accomplish that task. We need each other because each of us brings a part of the life that was Toby. None of us can bring all of it, for we only had those perspectives from our own experiences. We bring only a snapshot of the man who was Toby. There are some here who knew Toby for such a long time, and there are others in this room who knew him but briefly. Some knew him deeply, others more casually. The contexts in which we knew him differ, but it is only together, that we bring our experience of this remarkable human being and attempt to piece those fragments together into something resembling a full person. And make no mistake about it. To whatever extent our collective memories help us to conjure amongst us today the spirit of Toby Tyler, the inevitable reality is that despite our very best efforts, the fullness of who Toby was will yet exceed our recollections. So that's why we really do need each other, because Toby deserved nothing less. So how do we remember him? Well, there are facts. There are biographical pieces that make up his life. There are particulars that only those closest to him might know. He was William Tyler. He was the son of Marjorie and Frederick Tyler. He was born in Pittsburgh. He was born in 1946. Toby's parents divorced when he was about 14 years old, a time when there was quite the social stigma against divorce. That would have an impact on Toby's life. Perhaps that is why Toby was not all that desirous to engage in conflict, but it also made him a great person in times of conflict. Toby was a sibling. Brothers, Rick and Ed. Stepbrother, Jim. Stepsister, Debbie. Some of you know Toby as family. Others, perhaps here today, know Toby as the graduate of Rider College after moving to New Jersey. It was there at Rider College that Toby first met Annette. They've been married for 55 years. 55 years. In those early years, Toby served in the U.S. Army. I didn't know that. He also had a short stint during the Vietnam War. Together, Toby and Annette have lived in Hawaii, in New York, in Illinois, and of course, returned to New Jersey. Some know Toby as father, parent of two sons, Evan and Lee. They'll be sharing with us a little later. Toby was also known as a granddad. Of course, many of you in this room, you knew Toby because Toby and Annette came to this fellowship sometime around 1984. Evan was 7 years old, Lee was 3. Annette shared with me that because both Toby and her parents had died at a young age, when they were here at the fellowship, they were looking for extended family. And they found a way to plug in and become part of an extended family here. Some names from those days: Arlene Shapiro, Lorelei Harris, Paul Mitchell, and other friends of beloved memory, including Ann Renz, Claire, and Fred Meyer, Martin Eckstein, Phyllis Feinstein. Toby and Annette were also part of a parent support group at the fellowship. That group included Don and Newly Preziosi and John Franklin. There are so many stories in this room for so many people of how they connected with Toby Tyler right here in this very place. And those connections, they were vital for Annette and Toby. They became members here in 1991. And Toby served in so many leadership positions in this very congregation. He and Annette were active in the larger Unitarian Universalist world, frequent delegates to our annual General Assembly. And Toby was involved in so much else beyond the fellowship. He was instrumental in the founding of the UU Legislative Ministries of New Jersey, UULMNJ, now known as UU Faith Action, which happens to be the organization that I serve as executive director. I can tell you that Toby's leadership is already missed. Toby served on the board of UU Faith Action. He was a longtime liaison for this congregation. Reverend Rob Gregson, who is here today, who was my predecessor, Toby was on the committee that hired him. The list of social justice organizations in which Toby was involved are vast. There's Clearwater, there's Morris Habitat for Humanity, there's Peaceworks, and we could go on and on and on because there was so much. And Toby loved his grandson, Henry. So we can add adoring grandfather to the multifaceted life that was Toby Tyler. These are all true. These are ways in which you know Toby. Some of you have known him in these various aspects and in these pieces. It is all part of remembering Toby, and yet somehow it still feels insufficient, doesn't it? It feels like this is critical information to understand Toby, but it doesn't really say everything about who he was. You're going to hear from folks today who knew Toby so much better than I did. And so I will be quiet and get out of the way because that's really what you're here to do, to hear and share with each other. But before I do, I wanted to take just a moment to share just a couple of key characteristics of Toby Tyler that I got to know in my time here as your intern minister and in my time as executive director for UU Faith Action New Jersey. I recognize that of all the people in this room, I may have known Toby the shortest amount of time. And yet there was something about the man that you didn't have to know him very long until you knew exactly who he was and exactly what he stood for. And he made you feel welcome and loved. So how am I going to remember Toby? What is the facet I'm going to bring today to the story of what was the life of Toby Tyler? This is how I'm going to remember him. Toby had a heart for justice, didn't he? He cared deeply. He cared deeply about people. He cared deeply about getting things right. He cared deeply about making amends. He cared deeply. Toby led by example. He didn't have to be up front and out front all the time. He was often behind the scenes, though, in a way that is so desperately needed. He brokered no foolishness. And sometimes that's exactly the role that he played. To remind us that even in communities of faith, when sometimes we are needing to be reminded we are not being our best selves, Toby Tyler could step up and say, cut that out. And lastly, I will remember Toby as a man who filled every room he walked into with joy. So much joy and so much laughter. It's one thing to do this work, to feel called to live out your ethical principles. It's something else entirely to do it in a spirit of joy, to do it in a way that is contagious. And Toby did that. That's how I will remember Toby. To this congregation, you have lost an amazing leader. Without question. You may face some challenges ahead. You certainly will. All faith communities do. And when you do, I want to encourage you to stop and ask yourselves, what would Toby Tyler do in this situation? And whatever that answer is, I say go with it. I say go with it. To Annette, to Evan and Lee, let me say my heart breaks for you. As great as our loss is, you knew him in a way that we cannot even begin to fathom. My prayer for you is that you will find in one another grace for each day, patience to allow your grief to be what it needs to be, and love that will carry you through and remind you of your husband and your father. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us. Rest peacefully, Toby. May it be so. I'm now going to invite Don to come forward, Don Preziosi, who's going to share a reflection of his relationship with Toby Tyler.
Thank you, Charles. Deep breath. Last June, Toby asked me if I would give one of his recommendations for a position on the board of the Refugee Assistance Mars Partnership, or RAMP. I said, yes, of course. What do I need to do, Toby? Oh, I think you just need to give the contact person a call. Not surprisingly, they needed something in writing. And I then thought, darn you, Toby, because now I'd have to look back at 38 years of friendship and write down all the reasons any board should be thrilled to have Toby on it. This could take days and piles of paper. I met Toby in 1986 when some couples signed up for the Second Parent Support Group here. 5 couples met monthly and also picnicked, partied, camped, and even vacationed together, with and without our kids. What a great time we had, and what lasting friendships we forged. Toby always amazed me with his commitment to helping people, whether it was the elderly, the homeless, immigrants, refugees, or marginalized groups of all kinds. He used corporate skills for United Way and physical abilities for Habitat for Humanity. And in the meantime, his devotion to Unitarian Universalism got him involved in the New York Metro District and then statewide groups and agendas. He marched and demonstrated for peace, LGBTQ rights, Black lives, women's issues, and more. In our own congregation, he served on countless committees, was our president, and behind the scenes, he used accounting skills for service auctions and craft shows. He always followed through on his commitments. When called to help, the word no was not part of his vocabulary, probably much to Annette's chagrin at times. 8 years ago, when he started on a roller coaster of various serious health issues, he looked at them more like speed bumps and continued helping others, serving on committees and volunteering for more new things. In those years of health difficulties, he was a great role model for all of us on how to face one's challenges. Only once did Toby seem defeated by his health, and that was 6 years ago when he was told that it was time for him to go on hospice care. He took that on with the pragmatism you would expect from Toby. And then, within a short time, he was able to fire hospice and was back to doggedly working to improve his health. Not long after, he needed a lung transplant. 2 New York hospitals turned him down, so he headed to Philadelphia, where he was accepted into Temple's program. Months went on, and who can forget Toby's increasing need for more oxygen and the bigger and bigger steel tanks that he schlepped around. And he filled his car trunk with backup tanks so that he could still pursue an active life. Newly is my wife, by the way. Newly tells of sitting next to Toby and his big oxygen tank at a Christmas party. Toby said, "I bet you don't know where I was yesterday." Annette and I got a call during the night to be in Philadelphia within 2 hours because they had a lung for me. We raced down there. I was prepped with IVs and on a gurney headed for the OR. Then the doctor came out and said the donor lung was no good. Annette was upset on the way home, but I looked at it positively. Now I know that I'm at the top of the list. And so there was Toby enjoying the party. Weeks later, he did get his new lung. Toby always had a real zest for life. As close friends, he was always coming up with new ideas for day trips to see gardens, go on hikes, new sights to see, adventures to be had. Now, I don't know if Toby had ever played bocce before he played it with my Preziosi relatives, but after he did, he took to it like he had marinara sauce flowing through his veins. We played bocce on terrible lawns and surfaces everywhere, on our own and at muff events. We co-hosted bocce and barbecue fundraisers for the service auction. So 10 years ago, I got a call from Toby. "Don, I met this guy playing golf today who said he was the president of the Italian Bocce League in Madison. I told him that we liked bocce, and he said we should join. What do you think?" So now the Bocce brothers were playing on a professional bocce court with Italian immigrants and Italian Americans, and the main language was Italian. I mean, I could blend, but Toby Tyler? We didn't humiliate ourselves, but we were humbled by the incredible skills of both the men and the women. And that just inspired Toby to spread his love of bocce to more MUF members. Back to playing on bumpy lawns, but this time on the oval in front of the fellowship. Toby also had another favorite passion, poker. I think it's the longest running social group at the fellowship, at least 40 years. Ideally, 1 game a month with fellowship men playing for outrageously low stakes, 10 cents and 25-cent bets. At the end, one's winning or losses would usually be in the single digits, but the laughs were countless. Toby was the dean of the game, the historian, and often the arbiter of disputes because we played many wacky variations of poker that he liked. Toby featured himself a good player because he was good with numbers and odds. He did play to win, and bluffing was part of Toby's game. That's incredibly hard with such low stakes. And can you imagine Toby Tyler trying to keep a poker face? A little kibitzing and trash talk from others, and he'd break out in that smile. The game will go on, but the King of Hearts will be missed. So what will I take with me from my long friendship with Toby? Very simple, just 4 words. Do good, have fun. And by the way, Toby was chosen to be on the board of RAMP.
Thank you so much, Don. Joe Erhane, where are you? There you are. Please come up and share with us.
Thank you, Annette and the family, for letting me speak. Toby liked to play golf, and he would join Ron Corey and Tom Perch and me, and sometimes Steve Humphreys, for rounds at the local Morris County courses. He was also game for the group annual forays to Myrtle Beach or Hilton Head, generally arranged so that we'd be down there during the NCAA Final Four basketball tournament. We would play some gorgeous golf course in the daytime, go for a great dinner nearby, and return to our rented condo to watch the games and drink beer. I have to say that Toby wasn't a very good golfer. Toby in a sand trap was painful to watch. But he was a very good-natured golfer, so he was always a very pleasant guy to play with. Most of the time we shared bedrooms in the condos, and I liked to room with Toby, who was very easy to get along with. It did come with a price. Toby snored like a buzzsaw. The first time we shared, I thought, I'll just get to sleep real quick and it'll be okay. Wrong. After that, I made sure I had some earplugs and all was well. We always had a pool to pick the Final Four winner. And Toby, much like he did here at the fellowship, would do the drudgery of organizing it and sorting out the winnings. He was always up for doing things like that, especially the complex job of sorting out the bids and notifications for the service auction, which was a chore that seemed to go on forever, I'm sure. He did it all in good humor and accurately, for which we owe him much. Toby also made a habit of coming up with something new for the service auction every year. So he led us on a tour of Art Deco buildings in Manhattan, a visit to see the cherry blossoms in Newark in the spring, and even a private visit to Pete Seeger's Clearwater sailboat. Toby once ordered a rocking chair kit from Peaceworks, which was selling wooden rockers as part of their fundraising campaign here. The sample chair they had here looked very nice, not your usual clunky erector set. The kit arrived, and Toby wrestled with it for quite some time, but it wouldn't go together. He finally asked me for some help, thinking he must be doing something wrong. Well, he wasn't. The kit had a bunch of mismatched parts. Whoever put it in the box never checked to see if the parts would fit. I was inclined to recommend it for firewood. But Harry Wilson, Beth's father, said he would like to give it a try. I don't know how many parts he had to make or modify, but he got it together and it is still in use in the Tyler home. Toby and I and two other members, I think John Aller was one, volunteered for the Habitat for Humanity's Interfaith House Build on George Street in Morristown. I think there were 14 churches and synagogues involved. Toby had done a lot of work before with Habitat. I think he'd also served on their board of trustees. So he really knew his way around. It was a big job, 2-family house with 3 bedrooms each, starting with just a hole in the ground. And there were typically 10 to 15 volunteers on site 4 to 6 days a week. I'm proud to say that 3 or 4 of those volunteers were always fellowship members, including Toby and me. We were supposed to start in August and get it done in a couple of months, but because of permit problems and things like discovering an underground spring running through the property, we didn't get started until late. It took us all the way from October to April to finish, largely because of the cold and things like having to pry plywood sheets off of frozen stacks. So, Toby was always ready to help. One time when Beth and I were setting up her quilting studio in our basement, we had bought a big, heavy entertainment center from the Habitat Restore, but had no way to get it home. Who had a van and could help me get the cabinet in and lug it down into our basement? Why, Toby, of course, would help. We used to have monthly power outages before a couple of hurricanes when JCP&L was finally forced to do some serious preventive maintenance. During one of those outages, the Tylers were out of power while we weren't. So they came and stayed with us for a couple of days. One day, they were seated on the couch in conversation with us when our 70-pound golden doodle, Murphy, decided to be a lapdog and jumped up on Annette. The look on both their faces was hilarious as Murphy settled comfortably in. Tyler's always held a New Year's open house that we look forward to every year. People crowded their house and brought all kinds of cakes, cookies, and wine and beer, but we really came for Toby's traditional black-eyed peas. Does this give you a hint to how wonderful and important Toby was to this community? Toby was a good man and a valued friend to an amazing number of us, and we all miss him terribly.
Thank you, Joe. I share these words from the book of Ecclesiastes. This translation is from the New International Version. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search, a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Next, we're going to hear from Toby's sons. Evan, I invite you to come on up.
Hi. Toby, Bill, William, whatever you called him to my brother and me, he was Dad. I know, as has been said already, he was not ready to be done with life. And he never gave up. He had so much more that he wanted to do. And he was someone always ready to help, ready to make things better. As with the organizations he was involved with, the experiences and influences and traits that he gave to me are too many to count. I'll always remember bedtime stories read from either classic fairy tales or picture books when he would do the narration and have me read the voices. And later, putting up the Christmas tree together every year. His mind was clear and sharp until the end. He fought a long, hard battle, but it never affected his personality, alertness, or desire to help. See, and do as much as he could. I hear about dementia sometimes, and I'm grateful that he didn't have to experience that. At the end, I didn't get to say a last goodbye to him before he was intubated. But another thing that I'm glad for is that I did get to say I love you. I don't have to regret that it's too late for that. It may have been rough for us in my teen years, but after that we let each other know. And in deed and word, let each other know. Ed? Did you? Our Uncle Ed wanted to share with us his brother Bill.
Bill Tyler. I'm the only one in this room who's ever used that name. Seems like everybody here knows him as Toby. I know where he got the name. I think it was high school somewhere, but to me, he was always Bill. Bill and I only had one disagreement in life, just one. It had to do with our father and how differently we saw him. Bill was 5 years older than me, and we had a different relationship with my dad. Our father struggled with addiction problems, and Bill saw him on the positive side of our family, and being 5 years younger, I saw our father in a different way. The discussion, although got heated for about 5 minutes, quickly dissipated and never came up again. But there was one point in time where Bill got mad. And as time passed, I grew to understand that perhaps the difference in our ages has something to do with our relationship as well. When I was in middle school, Bill was off to college. When Bill got out of college, Bill went into the Army. When he got home, I was in college. We really never interacted during those years. As has been said many times today, Bill and Annette spent their times in Hawaii, Illinois, New York, and New Jersey. I went to school down south, and I spent my times in South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and North Carolina. We did spend one vacation together, in which I saw the pictures out there. It was Wildwood. I was corrected last night. So our children know something of each other. Actually, our son, Chris, is Evan's age, and Melissa is Lee's age. And so we had a great time that year, but that was the only time we ever did this. I did attend their wedding, and they came to North Carolina to attend Sally's and my vow renewal. So we talked occasionally on the phone, but except for a couple of short visits to New Jersey, that was about it. Most of what I knew about Bill actually came from Annette's holiday letters. You get these holiday letters, and you read through them and all those kinds of things, but it became a source of interest for me because it was clear to me that he did two things. He offered time to his church, and he offered time to his community. And I would have never known that except for Annette's letters. So as time passed, I grew to admire and respect him for the kind and giving person he was. The only regret I really have is that we talked about playing golf at Myrtle Beach, and we never got to do it because I was right there. We were in Hilton Head, and we spoke about it, but never knew. I I instinctively knew that Bill was a kind of a fearless guy. Sounds like most people saw him that way. I had two recollections of this, and perhaps a lot of you know this, but when Bill was a teenager, he hitchhiked across the country. Anybody here hitchhike across the country? That's quite an amazing feat. It's back when you stuck your thumb out on the road and you went. And I could never understand that. And the other recollection when I was young, if anybody here is familiar with Seabright, New Jersey, Sandy Hook, we spent a summer there, and there's just one road. There's the shore. I don't call it the beach, the shore. And then across the street was a river called the Shrewsbury River. Okay, everybody knows that. The Shrewsbury River is a tidal river, and it is affected by the tides twice a day. I stood there with Bill just kind of looking at the river, and it was racing. And he just got up on the railing and jumped in the water and started swimming. Now that river, best I can figure, is at least 300 yards wide, and most people can't make a 300-yard swim. But he jumped in the river, and the tide took him down the river so fast, I lost track of him. About an hour later, he showed up at the front door. Somehow he got across the river, and between all the boats and whatever else was out there, he made it home. I was a swimmer in the family. I swam in college. I would never have attempted that swim, ever. In my life, I wouldn't do that. Bill was also the centered brother. He was the keeper of the family records, letters between parents and grandparents, pictures dating back generations. I saw some pictures today I've never seen. And even books of German World War II stamps, which Bill and I tried to figure out what to do with them. We thought they were worth a lot of money, which they weren't, but that's okay. So I'm older now, and our disagreement doesn't really seem to matter as much as it did the day that it occurred. But I've come to see that Bill lived his life with grace and with dignity. The love of his family, and clearly the admiration from so many friends. For the measure of a man that reflects so many wonderful attributes and has impacted so many around him, including Annette and his sons, Evan and Lee, then as I continue my life, I wish to live it more like my brother Bill. I always told my wife that I loved Bill dearly, but we just never talked a lot. So I love you, Bill. Be at peace. Thank you.
So we're going to sing together now. The words are going to be up on the screen. A hymn that was important to Toby. Morning has broken. I invite you to rise as you are willing and able. We will sing Morning Has Broken.
Morning
And Lee, I'll invite you to come up now.
Thanks for being here. Learned more from writing this speech than what I'm actually going to say, so that was really important. Toby Tyler ran away and joined the circus. It's a movie if you haven't seen it. I was fortunate enough to tell my dad that he did a really good job with us. On behalf of any child, to the parents, he did a really good job. I was trying to think of like a specific story, and I couldn't really remember a lot. When I was 6, we were on our front porch, and Toby was hammering, and he hit himself on a hand, and he said, "Ow!" And I was like 6, and I'm like, "Oh, you don't need to cry?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "I gotta be tough like Dad." Took us to a lot of Yankee games and shoot pool for hours. He never let me win at tennis. He chaperoned me every Thursday night. I stayed late at the school. They had a special there, and the school was closed, and he had to be there. And he was there despite his busy work hours and all that. So just in honor of Toby, I'm declaring a world that works for everybody. An end to chronic disease. And people are as healthy as they want to be. And I really thank you all for being here. And it means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. I'm going to share a reading with you now. This is an anniversary poem to Annette from Toby. Reflection. Real reflection. Remembering those bygone days, the wonders we have seen, the simple things you did to make someone happy. Those were the best. An unexpected kiss, a present for a friend, a kind word. Do you remember those sunsets of flamingo streaks in the sky? Or the rainbow we followed in search of gold? The deer outside our window on a frosty afternoon. I remember those. And I remember more. I remember sitting with you in the firelight that made shadows dance around the room. I remember the surf surging shoreward only to be stopped by your wonderful toes. And I remember making love with you so gently because you're built for comfort, not for speed. Now comes the 9th year. Another year of inconsistency and frustration. Another year of I don't knows and why did you do that? But we will muddle through. And we will live on. And always, in the corner of my mind will be those reflections. The ones that hold me together. Sandra, I invite you to come forward now.
Wow. I don't think I've ever seen this room so full, and my sense is Toby would be embarrassed. But it's wonderful to see you all. After Toby died, I told Annette it was a shame that he hadn't done an Odyssey. She said he was asked, but he said no because he was afraid he would cry. I'm hoping I could get through this without crying, but I have a tissue in my sleeve. You have all known Toby so much longer than I, but it's fair to say that I've made up for that earlier time by being with him at the numerous and long meetings of the Gateways Task Force. When When I joined the fellowship in 2017, Toby was dragging around a portable oxygen tank. This was prior to his lung transplant. I remember thinking, this is a man who will soldier on no matter what the problem. And he did so with a smile and a sense of humor. Little did I know what good friends Toby and Annette would become since then. As a Gateways member since its inception, Toby was often not the first to offer an opinion on the topic at hand at our meetings, but when he did, his thoughts were worth hearing. His years of work experience and his more than active involvement at the fellowship made his opinions both thoughtful and practical. One of the many things I admired about Toby was his optimistic outlook and his readiness to tackle whatever was needed. I think you've heard a lot about that from prior people here. As you might imagine, there are thousands of decisions that need to be made for a project like our addition, and much research was needed for every one of them. As we got to the finishes, Toby volunteered to chair the audio-visual requirements, even though he admitted that he knew very little about that. With the help from Alex West, he soon became an expert. I missed him during the endless meetings Helene, Alex, and I had with an AV vendor. Toby worked with Dave Horst to find a solar provider. He offered his help to me when I was researching window treatments, and again on pricing furniture needs for the True Hall and the classrooms in the new building. He responded to concerns about birds flying into the windows and found a possible solution if that becomes a problem for us. It's fair to say that when we needed volunteer help, Toby never sat on his hands. I understand from Annette that Toby also had a very active volunteer life outside the fellowship. I witnessed that when he volunteered to handle the transportation 4 days a week for the Zamani family to go to ESL classes. Not an easy task with so many drivers to be scheduled. And just recently, Joan Belt said that Toby joined the ramp board. His enthusiasm and optimism and his willingness to help knew no bounds. We all regret that Toby will not be with us at the ribbon cutting for the new building, nor will he see the finished product for which he worked so tirelessly. But I will see him in every corner as we enjoy his efforts to make a wonderful addition to our fellowship. Toby was a good friend, a great bocce ball player, a true gentleman, and a thoughtful and gentle man. His was a life well lived. I miss him.
Let's sing again. I love this song. Of all the songs that I could think of, this one most makes me think of Toby Tyler. It's an excellent selection for today, Beth. Fire of Commitment. Again, I invite you to stand as you are able and willing and sing together.
Fire
Thank you. You can be seated. So we're going to take the time that we have remaining and invite those of you who wish to share remembrance of Toby to do so. Now what we're going to do is we have wireless microphones. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, wait for the microphone to be passed to you, and then share your remembrance. Folks, this is a full room because Toby was so loved, and we want to make space here, but we also want to be respectful of one another. So please share what your heart needs to share, but try to keep it as brief as you can. So if you'd like to share, raise your hand and wait for the microphone to get to you.
Good morning, good afternoon. Should I stand up?
Yes, please. Stand.
I'm Shari Lowe. There's so much to say about Toby, but I think one of the things hasn't been said that much is his dedication to the children and youth at this fellowship. I inherited these folders. You may know I'm leading the beginnings class once again. I inherited folders that have Toby and Annette's names on them from when they led that program, when must have been most likely their boys were in that age group. I remember there are not many people that have that gift of just understanding that children are people and just like you, only a little shorter, younger. I have so many images of Toby kneeling down, listening hard, so full of love and passion for our youth. And I know his boys felt that too. And my one other observation is that we have some Unitarian Universalist saints among us, and Toby gifted us with the presence of a Unitarian Universalist saint.
Steve Rice. Don Preziosi mentioned our poker group. I played poker with Toby for 20 years. I learned very quickly to always sit one or two spots after him in the rotation. Whenever I had to sit before him one or two spots, I got slayed.
Thank you. Who else would like to share?
So special to be here.
Would you stand, please? Just so.
Oh, I don't really want to stand, sorry. It is so special to be here. And I'm so sorry. And listening to all of you is just, I don't know, so moving and so loving. I'm a friend of Annette's. And I just want to say that I'm so sorry, Toby. Behind every, beautiful, special, listening to all your stories about this wonderful, wonderful guy I didn't know, was this beautiful wife. And something that he did rubbed off on her, and it's rubbed off on me. And not that long ago, Annette and I stood somewhere together, and there weren't that many of us. And I was like, what in the hell am I doing here? What are we going to do? And what we did together was just what he does, what you guys are talking about. And there's a picture of Annette and I having a drink together after we did this special thing that this guy is, and that she is too, and that now I am. Makes me stand up here today and say, there's an incredible woman behind, these incredible guys. These incredible guys. And I love you, Annette. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Helen Lippman. I was a member here for years, and Toby and I served on the board together. I just remember that he had a wicked sense of humor, and that is how he and I got through the board meetings, I feel like. It was like we were always cracking jokes. It was I mean, that's when I really got to know Toby in a different way. But so my husband, my late husband, Ellis Jacob, used to be part of the poker group. And yeah, and I was fortunate enough to have dinner with Toby and Annette in July or June, whenever it was, at the GA in Pittsburgh. So I was grateful for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
I just want to say that I first knew Tony and Annette by teaching with them in the RE program, and we did a curriculum called Haunting Houses, I think it was called. And Toby was so impressive. Like, he went out and got these boxes from the stores, the huge boxes from the like warehouses and stuff, and we made places for the children to make their own houses inside these boxes. And he had so much energy, and he was just so full of everything good about this program that I learned so much. And it was my second time teaching, and it was our second year here in the fellowship, and I just always remember what an experience that was. And I've admired him ever since.
Thank you.
I don't think I need a microphone.
Oh, no, we want to get a microphone because we're streaming. We want to make sure we get the audio.
It has to go out over the internet.
Sorry,
No, go
sorry,
ahead.
I didn't hear.
Hello, my name is Carol Graham. I'm the president of the Ramp Board of Trustees. And yes, Toby became a member of our board last summer. I knew him a little bit before that. He was the transportation coordinator for one of our families. And he volunteered to work with us on an exploratory committee when we were trying to figure out a new direction for our organization. But I got to know him a little bit more on the board, so it's less than a year. But we had some phone conversations, and I was always impressed with his wisdom, his creativity, even coming into the organization for such a short time. He had so many ideas and so many visions. The pastor said before that what we're hearing are the facts of his life. But what we're really feeling is that just amazingly beautiful spirit. And though I didn't know him long, that's what I will always remember.
Thank you. Please, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rose Kelly, and I live next door to the Tylers for about 32 years, 33 years. My son and daughter-in-law live in that home now. I have learned more today about Toby than I have living next to them all these years. Children, Lee and Evan, our children grew together, a little bit older than mine, but I saw them growing up, and just remember Toby and Annette always out with the children or in the garden, lovers of nature, life, talking about plants, just absolutely beautiful neighbors that one could ask for. Seeing you both grow was very special to me. And now seeing your son, Lee, Henry, beautiful. You have great dad, great uncle, grandmother. Just wonderful to see and know them. I am full of heart. I don't know what to say, but just learning more about Toby. I always saw Annette and Toby zipping in and out of the house in the car. Now I know why. I didn't realize all the things that they were involved in, but always just beautiful people. And just, it's been my pleasure living next to you all these years and getting to know you and the family. So I will miss Toby terribly, even though we just moved up the road, but I miss you both.
Thank you.
I'm Janine Torciello. I've been at the fellowship for about 30 years, and when I was really new to the fellowship, I was on the Sunday Services Committee, and I'm a poet, so I read a lot of poetry. And one day, Toby came up to me and said, you know, I work at AT&T, and we have this diversity program, and we bring in artists and people, and I need somebody, do you have any, like, LGBTQ poetry you could read? And I was like, sure, I can find some stuff. And he said, well, would you come and be a guest reader for me? And I said, sure. So I drove down to Basking Ridge, and I got to the front desk or whatever, and I asked for Toby Tyler. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, well, but he asked me to come here, and you have this diversity program and whatever. And then somebody realized, oh, you mean Bill Tyler, William Tyler. I'm like, who's that? That's when I first found out that Toby was not Toby. Toby was William Tyler.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm not a do-it-yourselfer, and he roped me into building a house. And I learned about electricity. Who knew? I mean, he always made you feel like you could do anything.
Hi, I'm Barbara Stasiak, and I've known Toby and Annette for a lot of years. More recently, I think about working with Toby on the service auction and going to a demonstration in Morristown wearing pussy hats and with Toby and Annette. But the memories go way back, and seeing all those photos of former years, it was really, really moving. And one of the things it reminded me of was when our kids were young together, and we were down on Long Beach Island for our annual vacation, and Toby and Annette and their family were there on the other end of the island. And they came up to our house, and we were out on the deck having clam cocktails together and having just a wonderful time. And having that kind of family connection all these years has been beautiful. And we're really going to miss Toby.
Anyone else? Oh, yes.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stephen Brunskill. I work at the Morristown and Morris Township Library. I've also worked there for over 30 years.
Wow.
And in all the time that I've been there, knowing Annette, being down in our local history department, as it was known then, and I learned so much about Toby, and today, oh, so much more. And seeing everybody here, it's truly amazing about the impact that he made in his family and in his community. I was raised in Morris County. I was born in Morris County. And I feel like I'm part of your family now, too. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Solu. I met Annette for the very first time at an RE committee meeting in Elizabeth Swope's house. She had just gotten a job at the library. And I thought, wow, a cool person to get to know. As it turns out, I didn't realize she's built for comfort. Me too. Me too. Me too. I think what I need to say is that there are a lot of us that are built for comfort and a lot of us that have the energy that Toby has. I think our community has been blessed, so blessed. I agree with you, Charles. We've lost an amazing leader. An amazing leader. But you know, we have the Tobys in our lives, and we have the Kathy Solus and the Sally Deeks and the John Franklins, and we have Helen Lippmans. We have all these wonderful people that make up our community. And I think today is going to be the day that we hold a little bit of Toby in our hearts, in our minds, and we challenge ourselves to bring that spirit and that vision as we move forward with our congregational life. So may we be always blessed by the memory of Toby, his wonderful family, and his great love of our community and of our faith.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there anyone else?
Steve Humphreys. Toby and I crossed paths many, many times, many
contexts. I always felt that we were very close kindred spirits. From the poker group and golf, but I think, and of course the fellowship, but I think the thing that we most had in common was our love for folk music. Many times I would see Toby and Annette at folk project events, but we loved to see each other at Clearwater also. I think Toby, like me, believed that inside every American there is a Pete Seeger struggling to get out. But the thing that I think impresses me the most about his life, in knowing him in all these different contexts, was his peaceful nature. He was a teacher for me. He was a good friend, but he was a teacher, and I learned so much from him, and I'm so grateful for having known him, and I will always remember and treasure my friendship with him.
Thank you. So I invite all of you to continue telling these stories together. As we finish this morning, we're going to invite you to stay, socialize with one another, have some food, and by all means, tell the stories. Tell the stories, because that's how we remember. That's how we do this work together. Friends, would you join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation? Spirit of life, God of our understanding and many names or no name at all, we are here today sharing the blessed memory of Toby Tyler. We have heard, Spirit, that his life touched so many of ours. We have heard that Toby was many things: husband, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, cousin, friend, veteran, congregant leader, confidant, activist, ally, poet, humanitarian, and the list could go on and on. We will remember and we will celebrate his love for life, the way he could bring laughter to a room. We are thankful for that joy. We are grateful for his commitment to justice, for his determination and courage to do what was needed, even if it was hard. We know that death and life are inextricably joined together. There is not one without the other. We know that our shared reality transcends our biological existence, and we know that because we are creatures of memory, our love never truly ends, but it continues on because it has forever changed us. We collectively are grateful for the life that was Toby Tyler's. May we find comfort as we mourn. Amen. Laurent, would you come forward? Laurent is going to extinguish our chalice. And again, immediately following the service, please join family and friends. There will be food at the tables. If you need to sit down, there will be tables at the terrace room. Our closing words are from Sarah York. Remembering well means grieving well. And grieving well means getting from anger and fear and guilt and despair to blessing. It means giving sorrow words or music or dance or ritual or some other expression. It means feeling the pain, not so that you can keep it, but so that you can let it go. Blessed be, and amen.